I'll clear these other ones pretty quick. ASEAN, I call it ASEAN. I don't know if that's correct or not. I don't know how you would spell that as an acronym, but what it is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, established in 1967. It's 10 member states, not 12. And this right here is them. Notice that China is not part of this. Notice that Taiwan and Japan, your Asian tigers, Korea, they're not part of this. Okay, this is a different trade bloc of some of your poorer, less economically sound countries. In an effort to grow faster collectively, they teamed up. And if you look at this one area, then they would make up the second fastest growing economy in Asia at the moment. So that's one of the ways that they're working on trying to develop themselves is through working together, kind of like the European Union. The World Trade Organization, WTO, is a 164 member states. It is a global trade a group that kind of helps to regulate global trade, and they do it kind of like the United Nations. It's kind of a peace, kind of like preserving peace, kind of supranational organization. What these guys try to do is handle different types of disputes in order to prevent things from getting spiraled out of control. Well, if we want to have a world that's centered on interconnectedness and globalization, one of the best ways to do this is to agree on kind of the rules of the trade. So members vote and agree on rules and regulations. They handle disputes and prevent things from spiraling out of control and resulting in wars. These guys are able to impose sanctions on groups if they break the rules and regulations. Some of the criticisms of the World Trade Organization are that it's too favorable towards developed countries. And it's hard to argue against that. I mean, if you're rich, then it's easy kind of to stay rich. If you're super poor, then it's harder to kind of get in a position of being super rich. That applies not only to countries in the world, but to people today in society. I mean, it's a lot easier for someone who is born in a rich family to be rich themselves. So it has to do with who is in control of resources and things like this. A lot of times the World Trade Organization catches a lot of flack for that. Another thing is that because of some of the infrastructure in places that are the poorest in the world, like a lot of your sub-Saharan African countries, a lot of the plans to solve some of the world's problems or to solve trade or to improve trade with developing countries doesn't really work. So that's part of that. The African Union is essentially every country in Africa is going to be part of this. Here's a quick slide I found on the internet that kind of summarizes it a little bit. The purpose of the African Union is to help secure Africa's democracy, human rights, and sustainable economy. There's that economic emphasis there. The Southern Common Market, this group here is known as the Southern Common Market and consists of most of your Latin America or your South American countries. And so it's kind of like NAFTA and the European Union, but with your South American countries. And so they're, this here is sometimes you'll see it called Mercosur. I don't know if that's an acronym or not, but again, like I said, the Southern Common Market is what you call this. Established by the Treaty of Asuncion in 1991. Its full members are those that you see there. The purpose is to underline that promote free trade and fluid movement of goods, people, and currency. I've read somewhere that these guys would like to have a single currency. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. And then here finally is kind of like a map that shows an outline of a lot of the supranational organizations that we just spent time talking about, as well as possibly a few others here that we didn't look at. So supranationalism is a kind of a big deal. It's kind of here to stay, like it or not. And in most cases, these, like I said earlier, are going to be economic blocs or economic trade organizations. They're focused on trying to promote the well-being of all member states rather than just going it alone in a world of globalization. Now, to wrap it up, what does this mean for sovereignty? Right, supranational organizations have put sovereignty in the question. I live in South Carolina, so this is probably pretty common, but You drive through some of these podunk towns. Down here, you might see these signs that say, get the U.S. out of the UN. You still see people say that, supranationalism for us is bad because it forces us to care and to kind of put ourselves into the politics of other parts of the world. And a lot of people don't sit well like that. But we're far from the isolationists that we were in the early 1900s. We're strong. We want to be a power player in the world today. We want to keep ourselves up there at the top. We do this by working together with other countries. What you're seeing here is, what's that chart right there? NAFTA. One of the things we just talked about earlier was that there was some controversy regarding NAFTA. That right there is a trade deficit between the United States and Mexico. So we import about, according to that, what is it, $70 billion more dollars worth of stuff than we export into Mexico. So it's not really fair, according to Donald Trump, for the United States to give them more in that deal than they're giving to us. So he wants to kind of balance that out. And there it is again, the same chart. In the in the European Union, the big thing that you've been hearing about for the last 2 years is Brexit. Oh, blimey, right? Maybe that's, I don't know if they say that or not, to be honest. All right, so in the United Kingdom, right now, they're trying to figure out and negotiate how they're going to exit. You see, they voted already in 2016 under David Cameron. Hey, we want to Brexit. We want to break up and divorce the European Union because largely they want to be able to make better trade deals. But I think one of the biggest issues here, one of the big issues is migration. You got this Syrian civil war, and you got a bunch of other immigrants from countries in Northern Africa or even other parts of Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, that are culturally and religiously different from Europeans. And there's this massive influx from across the Mediterranean of these people trying to come in and seek refuge in Europe. And Europeans, they're tired of that. So we think that we have a big immigration problem with building a wall down at the southern border of Mexico, but it's kind of the same in Europe in a lot of ways, maybe even worse because the cultural differences are way different. So conservatives in Europe are really tired of taking in refugees. And this is kind of across the board. And you see this, just like Donald Trump represents kind of a conservative wave across U.S. politics regarding these very same issues, you kind of had that or kind of have that movement in Europe as well. So the United Kingdom wants to be able to better control who comes in their country. They can't do that under the European Union. And so they want to break off, be able to handle their own border. This right here is a chart that shows the countries that pay more into the European Union than they receive. The United Kingdom is right up there in the middle of that. All right. These are the richest countries in the European Union. They give more to the collective whole than they get. Could you imagine how President Trump would feel if we were part of the European Union and we were paying in to support places like Hungary and Bulgaria that received the majority of the money? So that right there is the reason for the European Brexit, because they want to have sovereignty over their borders and over their trade deals and over their economy. So pay attention to that. They're supposed to have an agreement on how they Brexit. As early as March of this year, we're going to find out if they're going to either have a soft Brexit, a hard Brexit, or if they're going to just let it go by the wayside, not figure out a solution, and just figure out what happens as it does. I imagine that's probably not the choice that most of them want to follow. So stay tuned to that.